So, with that in mind, I mean, what is it like to have this album coming out in a couple months or a couple weeks now?
It came really fast. To be honest, with Perspicacity, it was really long. It's kind of like 6 years in the making. And so with Irkalla coming out just 2 years later, it's a lot faster turnaround, which is great because, we're not the most patient people sometimes. And it's good to kind of keep the boat going and not have to wait too long. We just don't like keeping people waiting that long for more material from us, and it also helps us kind of remain a little bit relevant to an extent. So yeah, I'm glad that it's coming out soon, and it came a little bit faster than I even thought it would. So it's very cool.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that too. I mean, the fact that it is having that consistency behind it to where people won't forget you, more people are going to remember you, and the fact that it is such a short span in relative terms between albums is a great thing, especially when you have those creative juices flowing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, with Irkalla, a lot of these songs are actually pretty old, kind of leftover songs from Perspicacity writing sessions, actually. So, and actually, Irkalla, uh, where this whole concept of the album came from is so me and the other guitarist, Nick, we had a side project called Irkalla. And then that kind of went, it didn't really work out. So we were like, well, all this material that we wrote for this side project actually sounds a lot like Aronious anyway. And why don't we just use this material for the next Aronious album? And there's enough there to work with where, we just made a whole nother album out of it. And so we're like, well, the concept behind Irkalla is cool. So we'll just name the next Aronious album Irkalla. And so we rolled with the concept, all the songs, and kind of even altered them a little bit to make them more erroneous-y. And so yeah, it all worked out really well. So that's how it kind of came about.
And to me, that's such a great thing to be able to show that a lot of the material might be older songs and riffs and ideas and all those things, but they were good enough to keep. I mean, the fact that they might not have fit on one particular album, but you were able to know that the songs were good enough to be able to use them in the future.
Yeah, it was kind of weird how that worked out. And honestly, at first, like, I kind of I forget who brought up the idea originally to use those songs for another Erroneous album, but at first, like I was I think it was Nick that brought forth the idea, and at first I was kind of hesitant because I wasn't super confident in the strength of the songs or the direction sound wise that it would be for our next album. And so I kind of pushed back a little bit at first. And then eventually I warmed up to the idea and I was like, you know what? Actually, this is a pretty good idea to use all these songs for that and let it be the next Erroneous album. Um, and then, all the songs that I was kind of questionable about, once we heard them, with the full picture with vocals and real drums and everything, and it actually being later stages in the mixing process, it really just kind of hit me like, oh wow, I'm actually really confident in these songs now, and it's all coming full circle. They actually sound really sick, and I don't know why I doubted myself, in the first place. So yeah, it was really kind of Nick, if I'm remembering right, that kind of pushed to use these songs and told me, hey Ryan, you're tripping, like these songs, they actually do rip, let's use them. So I got to thank him for that.
Oh, for sure, because he's totally right. These songs absolutely do rip, like from start
Thank
to
you.
finish. I mean, it's so great to see like the technicality behind it, but it just like all everything makes sense behind it as well too. Just like from start to finish, just like every song is completely solid.
Oh, I appreciate that so much, man. I mean, it's really nice of you. And honestly, the aim with this album, well, there were like a couple new songs that we actually wrote, more recently that we added to the mix too. Because we really wanted like it. When we were discussing it, we're like, well, if we are going to release this as an Aronious album, we want it to all just like every song, we just want it to be a banger. And so it was pretty much just aiming for all bangers, the whole album. It's all killer, no filler. There's really not a lot of like interludes or anything. It's just kind of like gonna smack you in the face one track to the next until the album's just kind of done. So with that aim in mind, I think we accomplished the goal pretty well with this album.
Oh, for sure. So thinking about that as well too, I mean, of course, being able to use some older material, mixing that in with new material. I mean, what was it like to be able to write some new songs to be able to like match the mood of the album? I mean, obviously you got ideas from the past and you want to be able to match things to make it cohesive.
Mhm.
So what was that like?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I'm glad you mentioned that. So um we had old songs that were just kind of sitting there, which made up for probably like I would say probably 60% of the album. And then there was that 40% where we needed to fill the gap and add songs in to actually make it feel like an album and not more like an EP. For me personally, I like releasing albums. I much prefer an album to an EP just because I don't know. I like listening to a story basically. When I get an album, I view it as kind of like a story to listen to, thematically, not only through the music but also the lyrics. Whereas an EP for me is just kind of like a little tease. It's a tease for me. I like you know feeling full after a listen. You know what I mean? Um, so we wanted to make it an album and not an EP. We like if we just cut it off and we're like, oh, let's use the Irkalla songs for Aronious, it would have really only been an EP because we only had enough songs for an EP at that point. But we actually were, because of the pandemic, after Perspicacity was released, we couldn't tour because we released the album on March 13th of 2020, and then we were trying to figure out, how are we going to tour, and then, you know, the next week, literally after we released the album, we got put on lockdown nationwide. So we're like, okay, what are we going to do now? So then we started writing for our next album. And we got a ton of songs written during that downtime, more songs than we knew what to do with. So we had 2 extra songs that were just kind of sitting there. So we were like, well, it doesn't really fit this new album. And then Irkalla, the side project, I gotta preface that, Irkalla, the side project did not work out. So then we had all the Irkalla songs, and then we had these 2 extra songs from the writing sessions of our other new album. And so we're like, well, these 2 other songs don't fit the other new album. Let's see if it fits with Irkalla. And we tried it out and we put it like I kind of came up with the track listing order of like where each song would fit best. And I listened to the whole album all the way through and I was like, you know what? Like this track list makes sense. It flows cohesively. All the songs work together really well. They all have that same level of intensity to them. And so we're like, let's do it. Let's use these 2 songs, slap it in there, and we'll call Irkalla an album for Aronious now. And then we actually do have we already have the follow-up album to Irkalla written and recorded too. So now we have 2 albums in the chamber. We've got Irkalla coming out, and then the follow-up album, who knows, we might have it out next year or it might be the following year, depending on how we go about with the release of it. We're trying to be really strategic about it, trying to be smart. But yeah, so that's how the Irkalla, the full length, came to be, and meshing all the songs together, and kind of what we're looking at for the future too.
Oh, that's so great to hear that too. I mean, when you got the ideas of what to do and like things happen in the world that can sidetrack you, that you're able to take full advantage of that and being able to work on other aspects of the band. I mean, when you can't tour, you're able to write better songs and you're able to just keep getting stronger as a band and being able to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And the fact that you already got the next album in the can almost, and just be, obviously fine tuning and all that stuff that'll happen before the release of that, but the fact that you already have that in motion is so
Mhm.
cool.
Yeah, I mean, because we couldn't tour, it just kind of made sense. We didn't want to just sit there and do nothing. I couldn't, because music is very ingrained into like who I am, what I really enjoy. It's the one hobby that I really have, that I gravitate towards, and it kind of keeps me sane, keeps my life from feeling, mundane. I really enjoy creating music and, just creating with my friends in that collaborative environment, bouncing ideas off of one another. Just made sense when the pandemic happened to just kind of buckle down and keep writing, because if we can't tour, we might as well write.
Oh, for sure. So, thinking about that as well too. I mean, obviously, at least from what it sounds like, when you put something together and you're writing out a demo and you want to be able to show everybody else, like you have so many ideas that you make yourself. I mean, whether it's the instrumentation, you're putting MIDI drums together, whatever the case is, you're putting the songs together like that. So, what is that process like for you to be able to write those and then eventually be able to share them with the rest of the band?
So the process, like my writing process, it might differ from some other people, but I feel like it's kind of common. But for me, what I do is, well, okay, so with Perspicacity, it was very much Guitar Pro oriented. A lot of riffs were just like written on a computer, which sounds just ridiculous. We would write the most ridiculous stuff we could come up with and then try to force ourselves to learn it. And it ultimately did make us better guitar players, because we were writing things outside of our capabilities at the time. And we can play Perspicacity songs now, but Irkalla and the album following that are a much different approach. So Irkalla wrote that largely with, practicing with guitar in my hands, just kind of riffing around. And I would, generally, the process for creating each of those songs was I would jam with the guitar in my hand, and then I would tab it out in Guitar Pro. And then I would program the drums in Guitar Pro, and then I would send the ideas off to the guys, and they have the Guitar Pro files so they can kind of tweak and add in whatever they want. But largely, it's just kind of me writing with the guitar, plugging it into Guitar Pro so I can kind of have tabs, because I found that if I get lazy and I don't tab stuff out right away, it's just gone. I forget it. So I make sure to tab all of my stuff out right away. Um, some people frown upon the Guitar Pro usage, and I think that's kind of silly, because you want to be able to remember your stuff. Um, but yeah, for me, I use it as kind of a notation tool. Obviously, I mean that's what the program is used for, but it is kind of a tool for me to notate right away in real time while I come up with the parts, and also send it out to my bandmates. And then I recently, well, I'll touch on that later, but basically that's how Irkalla, the writing process would go. I would come up with the guitar parts, tab it out, send it out to my friends, and collaborate. And then, yeah, we would finalize the song, and then we would just track it. So, yeah, that's kind of how that all went. And with the album following Irkalla, I'll tell you a little bit about that process. So, that actually, I finally buckled down and got Reaper, DAW software, to record guitar parts. I don't know why I waited so long to get, a recording interface and everything, but I finally learned how to track my own guitar parts, and I don't have to rely on anyone else for tracking. I can just track my own stuff at home, and I am self-sufficient finally. So that was a really cool feeling. So the album following Irkalla, I tracked a lot of my own stuff, solos, clean guitars, and we would demo out some rhythm guitar tracks too every once in a while. And yeah, so I'm finally self-sufficient in that aspect. Before that, I always had to go to Nick, our other guitarist's house, to kind of track me. But now that he lives in Florida, he can't track me anymore. So I was kind of forced to learn how to do it finally. And honestly, I'm kicking myself for not learning how to do it like 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah, I completely understand that, and I feel Reaper is such a lifesaver when it comes to anything I record. Like, Reaper has such an easy interface. Once you
Mm.
get everything dialed in, it just saves so much of the hassle compared to other DAW software out there. And
Oh
I
yeah.
live and breathe by Reaper, and it's great to see that you're taking advantage of that. But also the fact that you have learned from so many different ways, whether you're recording with people, whether you're recording on Guitar Pro now, uh, being able to work on Reaper by yourself. I mean, being able to have all this in your repertoire is so cool because, whatever happens in the future, you're now prepared to be able to write in all these different environments.
Yeah, I mean, even if everything goes to crap, say like all my bandmates just randomly hate me for some reason, I can still record music on my own. But I don't anticipate that ever happening. I want to play with these guys forever. The current lineup is we just gel. It's so chill, and there's no personalities that clash. Everyone gets along really good. Everyone in the band has been friends for a very long time, with the exception of our new drummer Kevin Paradis, who recently joined us. We're still getting to know him a little bit, but all the interactions we've had with him have been overwhelmingly positive. He's an amazing drummer, and yeah, I couldn't ask for a better drummer that could join us. And our new bassist, I've always known, well, not, I shouldn't say always, but I've known him for a while. His name is Jason Bauer. And then Brandon Brown, our new vocalist, he actually used to be our rhythm guitarist, but then he moved to Kentucky and he had some, things that he was kind of dealing with there. So he left our band for a little while there when he was moving to Kentucky. And then, yeah, just last year we asked him to rejoin us as our new vocalist because our old vocalist, Zach Early, decided that the band was maybe a little bit too much for him. He had a lot of stuff with his life going on at the time. So he ended up exiting the band. And we still love Zach. He's always going to be one of my best friends. It's just, he had some things in his life going on. And, um, he didn't really have time to keep up with the band stuff. So he ended up leaving for his personal reasons. And then Brandon, we asked to join back with us, not as a rhythm guitarist, but as our new vocalist. And so, yeah, our new lineup, I couldn't be happier with. Um, like I said, all really awesome dudes. I love them all. So, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm going off on tangents.
No, it's great to hear you praise the band that you got going on because when you hear the album, you can just hear everyone just being able to shine on this album, and it feels like such a great collective of musicians. And I can imagine when live shows come up, and anything that's playing now and anything coming up in the future, when you do get together, you're able to jam the songs and you're able to get on stage. It's just going to be a powerful set.
Yeah, well, so I want to touch on the live stuff a little bit. Let's see. So right now, like, because Kevin, like, okay, so I live in Green Bay. Jason lives in Appleton. Brandon lives in Milwaukee. So that's three of us that live in Wisconsin. But then our other guitarist, Nick Wires, he actually used to live in Wisconsin in Appleton, but he moved to Florida. He wanted to, just live somewhere warmer, I guess, which I can't fault him for. The winters in Wisconsin are brutal. But yeah, he lives in Florida now. And then our new drummer, Kevin Paradis, lives in France. So that makes playing live very difficult. Like, it would have to be a big tour for it to even be worth Kevin's while to fly out here and Nick's while to fly up from Florida. So it's really up in the air, like what's going to happen live or with tour. For right now, we're just focusing on, creating killer music with our best friends. But I won't rule out playing live because it is something I really miss. I never thought that I would say that I miss, playing all the small baller shows that I used to play because they were like so frequent. But yeah, I really miss playing even those small venue shows, and I miss playing on big stages, small stages, medium stages, any stage really. uh I miss it a lot, and it's a shame that everyone is kind of far away now. But I still do appreciate creating with my friends and shooting musical ideas to one another, and just still creating killer tunes with each other. So for that, I'm always going to be thankful for. As far as playing live, again, kind of questionable, up in the air. Hopefully it happens, but I can't make any concrete promises. Like, I have 2 kids, and Nick Wires has 2 kids, which also kind of makes things a little bit difficult. But yeah, so that's kind of where we're at with that. I just want to be transparent, um, because live, it has been kind of a big question mark over our heads for a little while now.
And that totally makes all the sense in the world too. And again, just like whether it's a lockdown, whether it's life priorities, whether it's location priorities, it's just like there's so many variables that can happen. But the fact that you're all able to still get together creatively, whether it's through computers or being able to meet up just like a couple people or whatever the situation is, the fact that you're all able to come together as conglomerates and being able to work on creative ideas and be able to put out killer material is such a great thing to be able to have. And when you're a part of such a great label as you are, when you're able to grow the fan base as you have been between both albums, and what I can only imagine will happen with the next album as well too, and just like seeing the rise that's going on with that. I mean, the fact that you can keep this going in any capacity is such a great thing.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. And you know, I, the tour thing and live shows, that I really don't want to let anyone down either. Like, I feel bad because I know there's at least at some capacity some people that want to see us live out there, and it's something I really want to make possible. It's just right now I don't know. It's hard. When everyone lived in the same state, it was so easy. We could, play any show that we wanted. Now it's become increasingly difficult to do so.
Yeah, and it's good to have that realistic things that could happen, but also at the same time, you're not ruling anything out either. And you never know, a huge
Yeah.
opportunity could come out at some point because of this album, because
Yeah.
of the next release. You never know what could happen. And the fact that, it's just like, even if there's just like a little glimmer of hope, there's still something that could happen. But until then, you're still releasing killer music.
Yeah, I mean, if we got an email like tomorrow that Metallica wants to take us on an international tour, I'll be like, yeah, duh. uh,
Oh,
but yeah, I don't know.
oh,
We'll see what happens with all that, I guess.
Oh, for sure. But until then, I mean, you've got a great album that's coming out in just a couple weeks now from tomorrow, on such a great label like Artisan Era, and just being able to get to check this album out from start to finish and see where you guys are coming from, and just seeing the progression of the band, and only what I can imagine will happen with the next release as well too, and seeing the progression that's happened with the band. It's just really cool to see where you guys are at this point. So many great things that I've been seeing online about you guys with the lyric videos that you've been able to put out and the full-on animation releases. The album cover is absolutely killer. I think it just matches the whole mood of the album perfectly. I mean, there's so many great things that are going on with the band right now, and I gotta
I
imagine with that
yeah.
alone, it's got to be a great feeling to be having this album coming out and just seeing such great things about it.
I really appreciate that, and the artwork. I gotta gotta shout out my main man Samuel Nelson for that. He's I'm not sure if you're familiar, but he has done some artwork for some other artisan bands as well. But he is just an awesome dude. Very easy to work with, personable. Love working with him. I can pal around and joke with him, and we've established I think a really good relationship. And you can shoot him ideas, and he just runs with it and goes crazy with it. The album artwork for Irkalla, I think that cover is insane, and he did it in like 3 days. And yeah, the turnaround time was insane. There's maybe some concepts that he might take a little bit longer with, and it really kind of depends on how the creative mood strikes him. If he's like in a tangent, like he'll just go off and go nuts and have something for you really fast. And with the Urkala album art, he just got in the zone and just banged it out, and the results are nuts. Basically, like Urkala is like another term for like the underworld. And I just told Sam, hey, just draw what Sam's version of hell might look like. And he was just like, oh, yeah, all right. And he just kind of went off with it. I gave him just complete creative control. And he knows I really appreciate, the kind of trippy, almost psychedelic style to art. And he knows that I like, trippy, dark looking art. And so he really just kind of went wild with it. And yeah, I think he did a killer job.
Oh, absolutely. And I feel the same way about you guys as well too with this album. And I can't wait for everyone to be able to check it out in a couple weeks through the Arson era. And with that, I think that's a great note to end on as well too. And I thank you very much for taking the time. It's a busy press day, and I appreciate you taking the time to be able to talk to me about everything that's going on with the band, with the album, and what to look forward to in the future.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you very much for having me.